Yeah, I'll do my opening bit. All right.
What are we gonna do Wednesday show?
I finished Centaur World like completely. It's only 2 seasons and it just ends.
That's it. They're not gonna make a third season.
If they do, it'll
per season.
If they do, like 9.
Okay.
And everyone has like.
How long are they though?
They're like a 23-minute show with full music.
Okay.
They're
I don't know if I can watch 18 episodes.
I don't think you'd have to. Honestly, all you need to watch is the first like 2 or 3 episodes, and you'll see what the fuck's going on.
Sent up people with 4 horse bodies.
The show is literally like, it starts with this super grimdark, serious like female knight on a horse, and there's shit going down, and they're singing songs, and then the horse gets transported to a fucked up My Little Pony like world. But that meta plot about the real world is like out there. And how do they intersect?
Tons and tons of things have used that.
I guess what I'll say is I've never seen a show that went so hard in both directions simultaneously. Like, take My Little Pony.
Inscription has that same structure.
All right. We're good to go.
That feels kind of overused, right? Where you have
I have never seen it this extreme before.
All right.
It was refreshing. How was
the 2 worlds, or the world within a world, or the.
Oh no, this is more like one world is My Little Pony Adventure Time poop fart jokes, but way crazier, and the real world is the No God is killing all humans.
Okay.
And it's a kid's show.
Kill all humans.
Hey, hot mama.
Want to kill all humans? Yeah. Well, yes, I do.
All right.
They're helping themselves out a lot right now.
God damn it!
That's how I got a job of it themselves. We don't get to sit back and watch.
I got one little news about that. I'm not going to harp on the MagFest thing, but there's a news about how Europe is starting to handle this. All right. Put a marker. It's Monday. It's Monday, January 10th, 2022. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we're talking about package managers or package management. So I ski a lot. That's a thing I do. COVID has kind of messed that up. Like, I can only really ski in a local mountain, and even then it depends. Like, I can't go indoors or whatever. But so I stumbled upon a video because I watch a lot of skiing videos. I watch a lot of tutorial videos. I watch a lot of training videos. I watch a lot of technique videos. I watch pros. I watch amateur. Like, it's part of how I stay engaged with the sport in the summer, but and in the winter. So over the weekend on Sunday, I watched a video that just came into my feed, and it was called Le Tunnel, the hardest slope on Earth, and it's a famous slope in the Alps. Like, this is an Alps ski slope, a piste, and I know about this slope. I know it exists, but I didn't know people talked about it as being the hardest slope in the Alps. So I watched this video, and it's, of course, this run has this really cool tunnel. Like, you get to the top of the mountain, and then you ski really slowly through a fucking just tiny tunnel cut through the mountain.
So it's like rocks above you and below you?
And below you, and you've got 4 feet on either side of you.
What if it fills with snow, though? They gotta shovel it out.
They make snow and push snow in there so you can ski through it. Because basically,
no. Oh yeah, because snow wouldn't be inside of it. But
exactly.
If it snows too much, the whole thing could be
they got to dig it out. They got a complex on both sides. It's real long. There's a rope in there, so you got to pull yourself along. But it's not hard.
Somebody in front of you is stuck, and someone else comes shushing through.
No, you can't get that fast. You're basically ski walking through this thing. It is in no way difficult. It's just really cool. So people are afraid of this thing, but it's not you could do.
I guess it sounds like the major danger would be if it collapses, which seems unlikely, or if you get stuck in, but it seems like there's a lot of staff maintaining it. So
the major danger seems to be that
lighting inside it.
Oh yeah, it's fully lit. I'm honest. If I put skis on you and told you to get through this tunnel, you would get through it just fine.
Well, I mean, it has a rope, so I can just pull. You can
just pull yourself along. Yeah. And it'll there's slight gentle slopes where you very slowly crawl forward.
Well, I got a rope, so.
Yep. So anyway, you get out of it, and there's the real slope. And sure enough, this video shows a ton of people in the Alps really, really struggling to get down this steep, difficult-looking slope. But as I watch it, this slope does not look that hard to me. And my immediate instinct, because I'm a wise
Is it just a sheet of ice?
So it's steep, like 35 degrees.
Okay, it's pretty steep.
It's scrapey and icy. Like you hear the people skiing, and it just sounds like there's no puffy snow on this thing. Big bumps, like moguls everywhere, and people are just wiping out.
Put your ass on the floor.
No, and people are just wiping out left and right. But I'm watching it, and I think that does not look hard. So because I'm nearly 40 and wiser than I was, say, 20 years ago, I don't immediately think, I could do that. I think, what am I missing? I'm clearly am missing something.
The camera needs to get a side view. See, maybe there's, something.
Oh, no. So I went further. I went and looked at the actual slope, like stats, topography. Like, what is the angle of this thing? I watched a bunch of other videos. A lot of people talk about how it's crazy hard. Alps people hurt themselves all the time on it. So I look, and it's not steeper than one of the steepest double black diamonds than Hunter Mountain.
Okay.
It's not even that different than Claire's Way at Hunter Mountain, a slope that I ski all the time. And basically what I determined from digging around for a couple hours, I was really invested in this, is that this slope is only hard to very good skiers who have never skied in the eastern United States. Because the primary reason the slope is hard is that it's steep and mogully and the snow is garbage. But it's only garbage by the standards of most of the world. The northeastern United States, the snow is generally so shitty that that's the kind of snow I'm usually skiing on already. So basically...
So Europeans who are used to skiing in the wonderful Alps, if they come to the
they would just die. They would struggle at Hunter Mountain on the double blacks, like honestly.
Uh-huh. So what you're telling me is that Rim sees a situation and he determines an explanation to aggrandize himself.
Well, no. What I'm saying is I am 100% because I had an Alps trip that had to get deferred because of COVID, but
the explanation must be that I am the best.
No, it's not. It's more that because there's an alternative to this is if the snow is good, skiers in the rest of the world are way better than me. I can't ski in that shit. It's just East Coast skiing means that this particular slope that a lot of professionals say is very hard. Not racers. The other thing I determined is that people who race, this is like the easiest slope in the world for them. And those are people who are way better than me. Those are the people who are skiing stuff that I won't ski even on the East Coast. But basically what I'm committing to is once COVID is to the point where I can travel again, I'm going to go ski this thing. Absolutely.
And bring a GoPro in the tunnel.
I will absolutely bring a GoPro. I'll live stream skiing this thing if I can. This slope is not that hard.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the most exciting thing that happened to me.
Rim will fall off this thing, and
I mean, you know what though? It is about as dangerous as slopes I do that I have bit it pretty hard before on.
I want to see the GoPro video, and might be a snuff film. We got to watch out.
But I think to start later this winter, once there's more snow, I'll go ski Claire's Way, which is the absolute same steepness, and basically it's almost the same trail.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ski that on GoPro first. You'll probably see me bite it, because that slope's real hard.
All right.
So yeah, that's what I got. I haven't done anything else because COVID.
I haven't done anything. I'm sitting inside doing my biz. That's it.
Yeah. Also, if any listeners have skied this thing before in Europe, let me know if I'm missing something, but a couple hours of research doesn't seem like this thing's that big a deal. Anyway, in a little bit of news, once again about Europe, the U.S. is having a lot of trouble with COVID, like above and beyond.
The whole world is having trouble with COVID. That's been true for several years now.
But the U.S. is having extra problems in that we have way more aggressive anti-vaxxers and way more anti-vaxxers in our own government defining policy. But this is an article on WAPO about how basically all of Europe is starting to treat this. And it's interesting because this is where there's going to be a huge departure. One by one, European nations are basically saying, if you're not vaccinated, we're going to block you out of basically everything. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything.
Yeah, the best one I saw, this is the best thing I've seen, in Quebec.
Oh, yeah.
In Quebec, Canada, they will not let you buy alcohol or weed if you are not vaccinated.
You want to fix this problem instantly in the U.S.?
Yeah, I know how to fix it instantly in the U.S. You ready? You can't buy gasoline if you're not vaccinated.
Well, in France, compare the messaging too. In France, the president basically said openly, I want to piss off anti-vaxxers. If I piss them off, I've done my job.
Yep. And that's a place where people vote.
Yeah.
Right?
But also,
why is that person who is an elected person, right, who's voted for in a democratic, some representative, kind of government, not afraid to anger voters yet in the United States? It's like, why the president is so afraid of making any voter angry, right? It won't insult any. Right?
Yeah. I think it would be especially considering that as big a problem as anti-vax sentiment is in the United States, those people are a minority of the population. They're just overrepresented in the government. Like vaccination measures are generally broadly popular in the U.S. They're just not electorally viable because of our broken system.
All I'm saying is it's okay to insult people. When
Yep.
they're a representative.
I would like to see
purpose.
President Joe Biden.
Attacks are okay when they're true.
I'd like to see our president tell white people who refuse vaccination to go fuck themselves live on TV.
That's right. If the president said literally the words "go fuck yourself" to someone who deserved it, that would get him votes. It wouldn't hurt anyone he's not losing votes. He's already lost those votes. He can't get them. He's only going to increase the enthusiasm by doing that. Why not do it?
But that's sort of what I'm getting at. I want to see that, but in America, the only politicians who do that are the bad, crazy right-wing ones.
Exactly.
I feel like, well, someday we'll get there. I hope.
Got all the wrong policies, but they've got some of the right techniques, a few.
So anyway, you got any tech news that isn't just the horrific pandemic that we're still stuck in?
Yeah, well, that's not tech news, really. But yeah, so
science news.
So because of the horrific pandemic that we're still stuck in and its related supply chain issues and all the other things that are going on, inflation and whatnot, there's a lack of chips, right? Silicon.
Yep.
And one thing that contains chips but doesn't need to contain chips, right, is printer ink cartridges. So you think if in a chip shortage, you're obviously, if there's something you manufacture, if you can manufacture it without the chip part, you're going to do it, right?
But Black Dynamite, I make money primarily by using DRM to prevent people from using reasonably priced printer ink in my garbage business model.
Right. So almost, first of all, printer popularity is just way down in general, right? People just don't have printers a lot these days.
That's why I have a laser printer, because I use it so rarely.
We'll talk about that. But people do have printers, tend to still buy the inkjet ones, and the cartridges for a long time, they've included microchips in them, and it's just a plastic tub of ink. Why do you need the chip? The chip serves two functions. One, it helps to accurately measure how much ink is remaining so that you can display in the software exactly how much ink is remaining, which is handy. That's handy. My laser printer can't do that. But two, it allows them to be like, hey, if someone else makes a plastic tub of ink and tries to sell it and you put it in your printer, the printer will try to detect that and be like, hey, you can't use that cartridge. So different companies handle this differently, right? So HP is the worst one. What HP does is not only will the cartridge not work, right, but they've got some sort of subscription bullshit service. You got to sign up and get the cartridges. Right? It's the worst one, right? So
we had to have done Geek Nights about this stuff a long time ago.
Buy the HP one, right? So, but all the news, if you read all the headlines, they're saying Canon, for Canon's printers, can't get enough chips. So it's telling customers how to circumvent the DRM. And that is not true. Canon never had DRM on its printers.
Yep.
What they do have is they just have an annoying message that pops up and says, hey, your ink cartridge might be, shady and not an official Canon one, but then it still prints.
Yep.
So all Canon did is tell its users, hey, our new cartridges don't have the chip. The message is going to pop up. Just click ignore and you print anyway, just like you could have done if you were using cheaper third-party cartridges the whole time. So no, Canon never had DRM. They just had annoying messages, but they never stopped you from using third-party, or in this case, first-party cartridges that have no chips in them.
Yeah.
I don't think they lowered the price, though, so now you're paying I assume you're paying the same and getting less because you're not getting the chip that tells you how much ink is left in there.
Yep. About the closest interesting thing is they basically effectively admitted that there are, quote, no negative effects on print quality when consumables are used without electronic components.
Well, they're in that case, they're referring to using their own cartridges, right? They're not saying that, but the point is that obviously, if you think you're a listener of this show, you probably don't need to be told this, but
Granted, though, that was an old thing. Like, kids today don't even have printers, so that's not. We were forged in the fires of being mad about printer ink.
But if there's anything in the world that has that print cartridge razor blade business model, you should be circumventing that.
Yep.
Right.
The sole exception to that, but it's not the business model. It's similar optically, but I want to point it out. Many times, the official battery of something is the official battery for a reason.
Battery is not, it's a rechargeable battery. It's different. That's not a...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not the same business model.
Right.
But while I have often used bootleg batteries and things, that is definitely a buyer beware situation.
But that's not in the same category because it's not a consumable thing. You have to keep buying. You buy the batteries once. You keep buying razor, even if you buy... the best razor blades, you got to keep buying more of them. They get dull. You can't really sharpen them.
Yeah.
That would be, and the same thing with our, I don't know if there's probably other things like that where you get to, it's a consumable, refillable thing. And if there's some sort of, if the first party, like Gillette, Mach, whatever blades, I don't even know what they have anymore because I haven't bought one.
I have saved so much goddamn money from shifting to a safety razor back in 2005.
Yeah. And there are some, I've seen these things, for example, there's like that Dollar Shave Club where it's like, they're trying to meet you halfway where like they're selling you a subscription to the cheaper, but it's like, no, go get the cheapest possible thing. You can buy like normal razor blades. You can buy like hundreds of them for like a couple dollars.
I will say, I do buy...
the Dollar Shave Club thing is like a ripoff.
I do buy the slightly more expensive feather blades instead of the cheaper Merkur blades because they do cut me less often.
I have... what brand do I have?
I've been using feather for about a decade.
I basically have a whole, like... big, long...
I bought a packet. I bought a box on Amazon like a decade ago that was like 1,000 of these blades.
I have so many. Basically what I have is like the display case that if you were a drugstore, you would put it out and people would take out little packs of 5. So it's like I open it and there's many, many packs of 5 in there.
Yep. Mine is a very similar format what I bought.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, ink cartridges you should get. If you have a laser printer, no one's going to do these shenanigans. You can buy one toner cartridge a legitimate one that will last you forever, and your cost per print will be like almost nothing.
And laser printers, while the upfront cost is more, unlike inkjets, that toner doesn't go bad. If you use your printer once a year when you have to do something official, just get a laser printer.
If for some reason you don't need a printer, right?
Avoid it. Absolutely.
Don't get one. And the few times you need to print something, you could go to your local FedEx, Kinko's, whatever, and they have a system where you could just email a PDF to an email address, and then it comes out of one of their printers, and you pay like 50 cents or something. Yep. And that's all you'll need for most people, I think.
I think what a lot of people do is just use whatever printer is at work.
You could do that too, but if you still go to a work,
right. Yeah,
if you need a printer, like you need to own one in the present day because of whatever you do, you should be having a laser printer.
I bought this laser printer. It's a full office color laser printer. It's gigantic. Like I went all out. I have not replaced any of the 4 toner cartridges in it since I bought it, which was more than 5 years ago.
I have this Brother.
Yeah, mine's Brother.
Black and white only laser printer. I've had it since at least a decade. It had a problem with it, but I've managed to fix the problem thanks to a YouTube video. And it's only on the second toner cartridge. The first one wasn't even a completely full one. It was like the free one that you get with the printer. And then I bought a real one that was 100% full of toner. It still prints perfectly fine, and it even does double-sided. So, and it wasn't expensive.
Yep. But I guess always be wary. Always be wary of anything that appears to have this business model.
Yep.
In some other news, so recently we were talking about, there's been a lot of acquisitions just everywhere in the world lately for a lot of capitalist reasons. But The Athletic got bought for a pretty paltry sum.
We talked about that last week. Yeah.
So Zynga which made Farmville, but that's not really how they make their money
Made
anymore
a bunch of
today,
other mobile junk too.
which is where they make their money. They just got bought by Take-Two for $12.7 billion.
So that means that Zynga, which just makes some mobile games, is worth 25 athletics,
Yep.
according to capitalism.
Which tracks, because in gaming, games that people who listen to Geek Nights play, those make so little money that they're not even worth talking about when you're an investor. The games that make the most money are shovelware, addictive, garbage, like simplistic, minimum effort
More money
phone
operating
games.
a casino than any other business. So now the whole biggest businesses in the world are just casinos, disguised as other things to avoid the gaming commission.
It's really funny how many mobile casual games are the exact same game with a different skin.
Yeah, or the worst part, and I can't say it enough, right? It's like at least in a real casino, you can win your money back.
Yeah. So
There's like this slot machine apps in the App Store that are like, you pay real money to get tokens, which basically is a number in their database, and that lets you play a slot machine. And even if you win that slot machine, all you can win is more tokens to play the slot machine more. You cannot win real money back. You 100% lose all the money.
yeah. But there's a bunch of stuff going on here, because on one hand, don't get me wrong, I'm not denigrating simple, casual, and or mobile games. That is just as valid of a gaming activity as anything any of you listening to the show do.
If that app with the fake slot machine that you can't win any money also didn't cost any money and you could just spin the slot machine forever, like I would occasionally just tap my finger on it while I was, zoning out or something. I don't know.
Yep. But also, gaming, playing games, even very simple ones, entertainment software, there's a reason it's so popular. It's so broadly popular because people like to interact with things and play games, however simple. Like, that's not really the problem here. The problem that this raises, like the second point, is that capitalism has pushed this to the point that there is an infinite variety of addictive shovelware games that are probably at least slightly toxic to the psyches of the people playing them.
You're just exploiting the human brain to take money out of the wallet.
Yep.
That is attached, that brain brain is associated with.
But the third thing that's going on right now, why was this bought? What's happening? Games that have something more going on don't make enough money. And this is why, and capitalism is pushing us to the extremes. This is why you're seeing so many gaming companies and so many everything companies pushing into the two final frontiers of late capitalism.
Yep.
NFT crypto. Yep. NFT cryptocurrency bullshit and minimally viable shovelware.
Yeah, Take-Two is like, well, we make real games that's not making enough money. Let's buy Zynga, right?
Yep.
We're still rich. And then you also got, Konami for many, many years has basically abandoned real games effectively.
Now they're just selling like Castlevania NFTs.
Yeah, it's been a long time since they've made a real game, effectively speaking.
But the problem you're going to have to grapple with if you're a gamer of any kind, casual, super hardcore, train, whatever, is that the entire global industry around games, just like every global industry, will make more money from this kind of crap than anything that you're probably interacting with. And this is going to get way worse before it gets better. This is the exact same pressure that's causing NFTs.
I mean, it's just a thing where, if you look at movies, right, other forms of art, music, right, is they all trended towards, right, this lowest common denominator, right, pop music, blockbuster, movies, and away from, other things that didn't make a lot of money. But games were able to take a step further, right, into pure exploitation. Right. It's like we can go past, just blockbuster video game. We don't need to stop there. Right. We can just go and become a casino. If movies could become casinos, Hollywood would have become casino operators. But that medium does not allow for it.
Yep. Right? And it all comes down to make things. We did a panel on this in ancient times. You need the before money to make anything. But the only people who are willing to give you before money in late capitalism are people who expect you to give them back some multiple of the before money they gave you.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye on this. This is just one drop in the bucket of a massive consolidation and race to the bottom in every industry on Earth. That's only going to get worse. And technology.
It's been happening, and it's still happening.
Well, to tie this back into a Monday show specifically, it's happening the fastest in the more digital and less tied to a physical reality a company or a product is, the faster this trend is going to happen, because it's easier to race to the bottom on software than it is to race to the bottom on something physical you make in a factory. It'll still happen.
And things physical you make in a factory are already at the bottom.
They're so close to the bottom. Go look for a KN95 mask on Amazon right now.
The only thing keeping them off the absolute bottom is like people still won't buy something made of lead, right? It's like, well, they would.
Except a lot of countries have basically prevented you from knowing if something has lead in it. And frankly, I don't trust half the stuff on Amazon to not have lead in it.
It's true.
I mean, I would not trust any N95 or KN95 mask that I got on Amazon right now.
Well, yeah, pretty much. I can't even
right?
see.
So, in some science news, that is big deal news. There are a lot of insane, very important scientific advancements that have happened over the last 2 years that haven't gotten a lot of attention because COVID is, of course, like this omnipresent threat. But we just successfully launched the most complex space telescope in human history. This thing is fucking gigantic. It is like, you really got to understand how big this thing is. It like unfolded itself in space. It's the successor to Hubble, and it weighs half what Hubble did because material science has advanced so much. Like astronomy and space science has advanced in ways that even nerds like just don't have the energy to pay attention to right now. I urge you to go, if you don't have time to read like the details of what the James Webb Space Telescope is capable of, I'm going to link to a 9-minute video that actually very succinctly explains everything going on with this. And if you care, you can read much more about it. But this is like ridiculous sci-fi nonsense. And material science is what made it happen. NASA's still doing stuff, and we'll be able to see
some pictures soon enough, I guess.
But this thing, it mostly focuses on infrared space stuff, like infrared astronomy.
Yeah, because of redshift, right? You're good. Yep. Yeah, that's how if you want to see something further away, right?
Yep.
It's like,
but also
even if that far away thing was like, purple, right?
Yep.
It's like, which is more higher frequency. It's like by the time that purple light gets to us, it's all stretched out. So you need an infrared camera to see further away things.
Yep. And further away also means further back in time. The James Webb Space Telescope will theoretically be able to start inspecting some of the earliest planets that were ever formed in the universe, some of the earliest stars that were ever formed in the universe.
Yeah. I mean, it's also why when you look out into space with your own eyeball that can only see visible light, you get everything's black because it's like, there might be something there, but it's redshifted so much that if there's any light coming from there.
The mirror on this thing is 21 feet in diameter.
Yeah, that's kind of big. So the question I have, right, is like, first of all, right, is, people always joke, and I know the answer to this, right, but it's like when they're making these telescopes, they always make a big deal, like you got to be in a clean room with no dust and everything's super fragile, and then they slap it on a rocket, like, right, and it's like, I understand why, they had to be so gentle with it on Earth, but the other thing that I've been thinking about is, why don't they just, it's really slow. Even the best telescopes they put in space are kind of slow at taking photos, right? So why not just have two? And it's like, well, if they start making another one now, they can make a better one than this already. Right?
That's actually, that is a big part of how space research is generally planned. The idea that you get something out there in general, not just space telescopes, but anything with space, you get something out there to do initial research, but you don't want to keep putting the same thing out there because science does advance so fast and materials and everything. Like if we tried to send something to Mars today, we could probably get something there faster if we just started later.
Yeah, because we would beat ourselves. We would beat that thing in a race to Mars with something we made later.
And especially if you look at deep space research.
Yep. But what you could have done right, is I guess if things were funded properly by taxing rich people so much that we could afford to take care of everyone on Earth and then even have money left over for space, right? Then what you could have done is like, yeah, you could have just built 2 at once, right? And then
I see you saw Contact. Why build 1 when you can build 2 for twice the price?
Exactly. It's like you could have, it's like building the same one again makes no sense because if we started building a new space telescope today, we could outdo this one. But if we had just, for every time we made a piece for this one, made like 4 pieces that were identical.
I can explain that a little bit. One is we don't have enough budget for that because of,
that's
politics.
What I said. That's why. Pay for this,
But
right?
another
Instead
reason.
Of paying for guns or, tax cuts for rich people.
What I'll point to is, you know that crazy man making his marble machine?
Yeah.
So that kind of...
He could have made 2 pieces and made 2 marble machines.
No, actually, because this kind of device that is made, generally, like this kind of complex device, is made basically bespoke and adapted and tweaked in terms of its own physical reality. So it is not actually in any way efficient to make 2 of them at the same time. You don't gain anything from doing that because they'll both have to be tweaked independently so heavily.
You gain a second telescope.
Yeah, but then you also have to launch it.
You could put 1 on each side of the Earth.
This is out at Lagrange point 2. This is way different from what we've done before.
You can put it at the next Lagrange point 3. There's more than 1, is what I'm saying. They don't have to occupy the same spot.
But anyway, I encourage you to at least learn a little bit about what it took to get James Webb up there, because this is one of the most important advances in astronomy in human history.
It's also fascinating that even the ridiculous space telescope is fundamentally, it's the same as just a digital camera attached to a telescope. It's not, that's all it is. There's nothing different about it other than that it's big and fancier. It's the same fundamental idea.
Most of the difficulty is how do you unfold this thing in space and how do you shield it from the sun?
Yep. But it's still just a giant digital camera.
Yeah.
A sensor, lens, mirrors. Yeah.
So last news, and this actually is a direct segue into our main bit. The Npm Package Manager, which many of you probably know and hate, had 2 libraries, faker.js, or packages, and colors.js. Widely used, very popular. The individual who made these libraries...
One of the maintainers of those, who I guess had permissions to push to the, they released some updates that were malicious.
They rolled out version 6.6.6, which was not the next version anyone expected, because 5.5.3 was the last version.
And anyone who's, package.json file specified, give me the newest version, as opposed to give me this specific locked-in version.
So they got this package. So if I got colors 6.6.6 or fakers 6.6.6, these were logic bombs. They were sabotaged. They would just infinitely output strange characters and the words liberty over and over and over again. They would just destroy any project that used them.
Yeah, the person who was behind this seems to have been disgruntled by the fact that they wrote all this code that is being used so widely by for-profit companies, which is that's how open source works.
Yeah,
but also
there are licenses that preclude that. There's a reason no one uses those licenses.
But also this person seems to have gone down a conspiracy theory hole and has some issues.
Oh yeah, I will not repeat.
It's not about the person. It's about package management, which we're going to talk about in the main bit.
Yep. So, if you, thankfully, if you use either of these, you already know about this problem. And even further, NPM, and everyone involved basically forced a regression to the previous known good version. This person is not able to push further updates. And, you can read the article to see all the details. But in the end, to tie this to the main bit, the problem and with all things is that if you want to use anything anyone else made, at some point you have to trust another person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how we navigate that, trust, and also how we compensate people who make things, is an unresolved problem in society. That's a difficult problem to solve. If there were easy solutions to this, we would not have NPM.
No, we have better than NPM.
We do already have better than NPM. NPM, anyway. All right. But anyway, things of the day. So this is just a really cute little thing. This YouTube channel has some like fun animatics, but this is little shorts, like 30-second clips, animatics, but extremely well drawn. It's basically if Seinfeld was furries drawn in the mid 90s Disney afternoon style. Really, really well done. Seinfeld, Newman, George, Elaine, like everything about this is perfect. If this were fully animated and this were on TV, I would watch every goddamn second of it. It's just delightful.
Okay. So I don't think I've used this guy as a thing of the day before, but there's a YouTube channel that's been around for years, and I just didn't know about it till recently. Run by someone named Ben Eater, Eater, like a person who eats named Ben.
Yeah. Or one who eats Ben's.
Maybe. Yeah, that's true. And Ben Eater seems to be an expert at like electrical computer engineering, and basically has videos showing you how to, just using breadboards, chips, wires, make a 6802 computer, right? Make computers basically out of nothing, right? As a learning exercise. And so the whole channel is thing of the day worthy.
Oh yeah.
I just didn't know about it until recently. But the one thing I really want to highlight is the series of world's shittiest video card. He basically makes a video card out of nothing. He starts on the VGA side. He's like, look, I got a monitor and I got a VGA cable. I have to make something that sends a signal into the VGA cable that will display an image on the monitor. And he works backwards from that to, bits in an image file in an EEPROM. And basically with a few breadboards, or 3 of them, makes a video card. It's technically a video card.
Yeah.
It's the world's shittiest video card, but it works. And the other thing is, I guess, I was not sponsored in any way. I've never talked to this person, but on their website, they sell kits where you can buy world's shittiest video card and put it together yourself.
That actually does seem pretty fun.
It does seem like a lot of fun, but the reason I didn't do it is because what am I going to do? Buy it, put it together, it'll display an image, and then I'm done, right?
I'd probably make it display a different image, maybe a couple times, and then I'd be done. And it would go into the closet with all my other electronics, and then 5 years from now, I would find it, go, what the fuck is this? And throw it away.
It would be a fun thing just to do for a weekend, but then it's like, well, what do I do with it now, right? It's like, would I really make it my main hobby and like build upon it? It's like, no.
You know what would be a real fun thing to do? Buy a bunch of these for like some computer camp post-COVID.
You absolutely. If anyone out there is doing like computer education stuff, the kit to make your own computer and then program it, just buy like one for every kid. They could all build them, and then either take them home, or if they, or keep them and then use it again next time you have, the next class.
There's just something really visceral because, you look at a video card and it's so complex that there is no way to interrogate that complexity unless you are like a supreme expert in graphics and all this stuff. But to see what is technically a video card with a breadboard on the scale that I used in elementary school when I learned how like adders work, that actually works, like taking a kid through this collection of wires that you can look at and actually understand is making an image appear on a screen.
And that is video card in your computer, your 3080 is not just like the James Webb Telescope is not fundamentally different from a digital camera strapped to a mirror telescope, right? This shitty video card is not really, other than the lack of the GPU, is not fundamentally different from the bit that you're at 3080. It's right.
In fact, in some ways, it's a lot like early video processing on pre-GPU devices.
Right. It's like the only real difference is that like your 3080, instead of, you could just send your 3080, just like, a bitmap image and say, show this on the screen, and it will. But you also could just send it like, some numbers and say, yeah, a sphere here and a texture there and a texture. And then it will render that with its GPU and to create an image to put into the frame buffer in that way. And that's really the only feature that the GPU offers that this thing, other than higher resolution frame rate modes and DisplayPort and HDMI.
And CUDA cores and parallel processing and...
But it's still fundamentally the same thing.
But
this card's a video card.
And this is a topic I think about a lot. I think as technology progresses, one of the most important things we can do in schools is to integrate technology alongside everything else. And I do think there is a place for having kids learn technology by making and using what we would consider very shitty computers. I learned more trying to make a TI-85 do what I wanted to do. And there's a line there.
It's like, even though there's a huge gap between this and the things that people currently use, if you understand this, well, then you're way more good to go than you realize.
Yeah.
Right?
Imagine if throughout school,
in between stuff is just it's just faster with more features.
Imagine if throughout school, like in first grade, you start building a really simple adder, and as you go through school, you keep adding to this device. It becomes more and more complex as you go through school. I think a lot about that. Not that I have any power. Like, talk about things that are a negative priority for the U.S. government. So yeah, in the meta moment, the Geek Nights Book Club book, Tale of Genji, we are nearing the end.
So the Kindle lies to you. It thinks the end of the book is like after all the notes and credits and footnote things. The actual end of the book is on page 1119. So I am currently on page 966. I have 153 pages left. I'm 87% done, even though the Kindle tells me I'm 67% done. So the end is nigh because I've read more than 150 pages in the past week. I was on page 700 something last week. So we're going to be done this week, I guess, right? Maybe.
Yep. I won't be done till the end of the month. I got about 14 chapters still to read. But I blow through them. So the only thing that slows me down is every time I finish a chapter, I'm going back.
Some long chapters towards the end.
That's the only caveat, but I'm confident.
The chapter I'm in right now, it said the Kindle estimated would have taken me 90 minutes total, but I fell asleep while I was reading it last night.
Yeah. But every time I finish a chapter, I'm going back and reading a summary of that chapter to make sure I didn't miss anything super important or obvious.
Well, once you get past chapter 40 something, it's like it's hard to miss anything.
Yeah. Well, also that's a
lot less happens per chapter.
So yeah, I think like the first week of February, we're gonna do it one to three shows on Genji.
We got to make it worth it.
I have picked the next book because I get to pick the next book.
I'm gonna go on a fiesta of. It'll be like once I finish it, it'll be like a great weight is lifted. I'm gonna go on like a fiesta of. Reading other things, right?
Yeah, the next book will be The Count of Monte Cristo. No, it won't.
All right.
Granted, I have been meaning to read that again. I do really like that book, but
enjoy.
Not anytime soon. Otherwise,
I learned my lesson.
Yeah. I'm glad I read it. I've learned a lot so far, and I still got,
Yeah, no, I don't regret reading it, but I still learned my lesson.
Yeah. We're not going to any cons anytime soon, obviously. Please don't go anywhere if you can avoid it. The world's in deep shit right now with Omicron and COVID in general. The last con I was at without Scott was PAX Unplugged, and there's video of that panel. Like I promised, you didn't need to be there. It's on YouTube. You can hear me just fine despite the fact that I'm wearing a mask. Rare game mechanics. I'm proud of that panel. I don't think I have anything more to say on that topic, so I don't know if we'll ever do it again. And otherwise, just stay tuned. We're working on a ton of stuff. Scott's cranking through our new website with the designer.
Working on the new website, yeah.
Yep, I'm working on. I poked more at the timecode stuff we're trying to do. I think I can render out an MP3 with a library that does what you want, but I'm gonna do a little bit of testing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Let us know if there are any features you want on the website besides things I already know, like the search is going to not suck. I'm going to make the best search. Don't worry.
Yep. I mean, if
you have any good ideas that don't exist already.
Yeah. Also, we got a Discord.
If you tell me an idea I already know, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I know already.
Yep.
So make sure, but don't let that scare you away. It doesn't hurt you for me to tell you, yes, I know.
In fact, come into the Discord if you haven't joined it. Our Discord's pretty happening and chill, and just talk to us there about it. At some point, we're probably going to start also live streaming the show into a Discord stage. And I'm working on a pipeline to do call-in shows occasionally. We're not going to overdo that. Kind of just waiting for video to also be in there. But that's one thing I'm working on, especially now that I finished some other projects that had nothing to do with Geek Nights. And we're working on some non-convention panels that we might do in the next few months if it turns out that we're not going to any cons in 2022. Just do a panel for just for nothing. Just, hey, it's Tuesday. Here's a panel. Because that's actually kind of fun to do. But we want to get the website and some other stuff done first.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all I got. Stay safe out there. And let's talk about package managers. And there's a bunch of different topics in this space.
Yeah, we might have done an episode on this an incredibly long time ago, I think, related to operating system package managers.
Yeah, I'll dig that. I did look that up before.
You want to listen to last week's show about libraries first, because package managers are basically part of the dynamic loading library solution, right?
Yep.
So, most people are used to Windows or Mac, and for a long time, the way you would install software on such a computer was to, get either a floppy disk CD-ROM or download of a setup.exe and then run it.
Yep.
And then so you would get software and install it on its own. And all these different softwares that were coming from different places would be installed alongside each other on the same computer, sometimes cause problems, sometimes not. There are ways to make it work, right?
And many of these things were monolithic executables that didn't even depend on anything. Not everything, though.
Like we said, if they're statically loading, it's not an issue, right? If they're dynamically loading libraries, then they need to bring those libraries along with them. And if there's conflicts, those libraries, different versions of the library have to live alongside each other and load the correct ones. All kinds of things going on there. So the question is, well, what in the Unix world, right? Linux especially, what they were doing was something different. Because the software was free and open source, you didn't have to go and get the software from the person who made the software.
You could.
Legal. You could, but it was legal to redistribute the software. So distributions, Linux distributions, what a Linux distribution is basically someone who went out and picked a whole bunch of software and they said, I have chosen this set of software to use together on top of the Linux kernel that I have also customized.
Yep.
Download this from me. You can just download all the software from me only and not from anyone else. And then I will maintain this repository of software, which is redistributed copies of the software. And I've prepared it all in such a way that it all goes together nicely. And I'm going to update versions and apply security patches. And I'm going to maintain a cohesive ecosystem of software that all works together, right? All the versions are in alignment with each other and all the libraries are, and it's like they do all the work for you. And when you want to install something, you just say, hey, apt-get install Firefox, apt-get install, libSSL, apt-get install Python, whatever software you need, you just type apt install or yum install or whatever it is. And
Portage.
Yeah, Pac-Man, I don't know. And there's a piece of software that is like the package manager that connects to a repository somewhere where all the software is, and it goes and it downloads the right files, and it has instructions on how to install it, and it also knows what other software is needed. It's like, oh, you want to install that? Well, you're going to need these 3 other things also. Do you have those? Oh, you don't? Well, you're going to need, oh, you do have them. Okay, well, then you don't need to install them. You've got them already.
Now, those Linux distributions, you could just install software you get on your own, and there's a bunch of different ways Linux supported that. We're not really going to cover that today. Like, the simplistic way was you put executables in, opt.
But so that's the other thing is that there were 2 kinds, at least as far as Linux distributions go. There's source distributions and binary distributions, right? Because some software is just, for interpreted languages like, Python or Perl or Ruby. And it's not compiled. So when you send someone the software, you're literally sending them the source code. But some programs are written in compiled languages like C or Pascal or whatever.
Yeah.
And so in those cases, it's like, well, you could compile the program and send someone the executable, or you could send someone the source code, the C source code, and also have them install the compiler and compile it on their own computer themselves. And so that's what's called a source distribution, like Gentoo, or I don't know if Arch Linux still does that, or I don't know. There are some source distributions out there.
Yeah, I'm so far beyond even using Linux in my day-to-day life anymore. But I do remember as a kid, like the first time I used Linux, the idea of a package manager was kind of shocking to me because that was not something that existed in the Windows ecosystem effectively at the time.
Didn't really. A lot of people who go and try to use Linux for the first time, it's like that's the biggest. It's like it's actually easier when you think about it. It's the same thing. It's like App Store on iOS, right? It's like all your apps, you get them from one place. Windows and Mac have both moved towards the Linux model of having effectively an App Store.
It's very notable though that like most people I know, and even myself, no one I know uses the Windows App Store. They still just install things directly.
There are, for the really basic apps that are like Spotify or these major apps, I install them from the Windows App Store because then they auto update without having their own update. Like iTunes, it's better to get iTunes from the Windows App Store than from using the Apple installer because then you won't have to deal with the Apple updater.
Yeah.
Right? You'll just get these automatic updates from the Windows Store.
Yep. It also got complicated because like Steam effectively became almost an app store just for games.
Steam is a package manager effectively, but each game sort of installs entirely on its own in its own little world.
There remember the era where every game would independently install its own copy of some redistributable libraries and all that, but
they still do that. You have DirectX every time,
It's gotten a lot better.
Right. So that's what a package manager is, right? But there's this next level, and this is where the libraries that we talked about 2 weeks ago are relevant, is that let's say you're writing a program, right? Let's say I'm writing a C++ program, right? And, so I need a C++ compiler. So I'm sitting on this computer running whatever Linux distribution, and I go install, GCC, G++, right? Well, what if that version, that there's only one version of G++ available distribution, right? And that's the version you're going to get.
Yep.
What if I want a newer version?
Some distributions will have things like you can tell it to, like it'll have a couple other options and you can enable a flag.
Yeah, you could apply a PPA, like, adjust where you tell it to get software from a different location, like you can hook up to like the Postgres PPA to get newer database versions.
Yep.
Things like that are available, but it's like you want to divert from the norm, and it's like, okay. And then you go ahead, you get your different compiler. All right, you're good. And then it's like, well, now you're writing a program, and the program you're writing, you want to use a library, but so it's like, well, my distribution provides library version 3, but I want to write a program using library version 4 or a different library. Maybe I'm working on 2 different projects. I have 2 different software projects I'm working on. One of them uses library version 3 and one of them uses 4. What the hell do I do about that, right? What the hell do I do about that, right? There's all these issues. So what's come to be is that most major programming languages these days, I think Perl was the first major one I remember with CPAN, they have their own separate package manager for the programming language, right? So Python has PyPy, Ruby has Ruby Gems, Node JavaScript has NPM, right? Which is the worst garbagey one. It's really poorly managed in general. And there's basically, so now on top of your operating system package manager, where you're installing software for like the global system, you also have a separate package manager to install libraries specific to a particular programming language. And then on top of that, you have like environment managing things or Docker or containers or whatever you're going to use to when you're working on different projects. Right? It's like project 1, when I install things for project 1, don't install them on the global system. Use the Python package manager to install libraries in this box, virtual environment is what they call it. And then I'm working on a different project now. And when I install things, put them in this box. And that way you can have different versions of your Python, different versions of libraries, and then you got to publish libraries, right? It's like this thing just never ends. It's like turtles all the way down.
Yep. And if you work in a big company, you've probably got internal package repositories for things that other teams have made in your own company. And those I work in a company where we have several.
We have those too. It's like
some of them are mutually incompatible.
Right. There's like there's publicly available software that's been like published for the whole world. Someone writes, a library to find the square roots of numbers or something, right? And they publish it. So you go, okay, install square root library, and you get it from the global repository. It's free. Everyone's got it. Like those 2 corrupted Npm packages, one, right? Npm install colors, right?
Yeah.
But what if someone you make a library and you want to be able to install it repeatedly, right, to use it in other projects, but you don't want to just share it with the whole freaking world? Then, just like Rim said, you host your own little package repository that you can publish packages to and install from.
But I guess
if you want to publish globally, then you do what the person in the news bit did. You publish globally, share with the world.
Yep.
And then if people start using it and you go ahead and corrupt it, well, they're in trouble.
But I guess similar to what we talked about in the first half of the show, all these different things, installing software on your Windows computer, installing an app on your phone, installing libraries to write code, they're all fundamentally the same thing with the same challenges.
Yep. It's basically like these little libraries that have, software, and you have programs on your computer that know how to talk to those libraries, and the libraries give you instructions on how to get the software and install it onto your computer. And you tell it, hey, this tool, go get this package. Okay, I'm getting it. Right? And get everything else that package needs in case there's dependencies. Okay. And if there's a bunch of different packages, make sure you sort out the dependencies between them. Okay. And get these specific versions too. I don't want to just, sometimes I want the newest one, but sometimes I want old ones.
Yep, I got one that I know works. And even worse, if you're in a CI/CD environment, continuous integration, continuous deployment, then you have to set up pipelines to where when any library and all the different package things you use updates, you're going to have a way to confirm that update won't break anything you've already got.
Yep. I think the way I handle that problem these days is on GitHub, there's a thing called Dependabot. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
Okay, so it's been there for a while, but I guess you wouldn't know about it. It's a programmer's thing. So
yeah, I am so far removed from day-to-day programming.
Let's say you're writing a program, right? And you're writing a Node.js, a JavaScript program, right? So you're gonna have a file in your code repository called package.json, and in that file is gonna basically be a list of all the packages that your software needs, right? So please include colors version 1. Please include the newest version of, Faker, right? Whatever. All these, it's just a list, basically. It's a JSON file, but it's effectively just a list of all the packages that your program needs to install from somewhere else in order to work, because you're not including that code directly, and the versions of each thing that you need, right? So if someone downloads your code, then they just type npm install in your directory, and it will look at that file and automatically go to npm and install all the versions of all the things. And it works the same pretty much for every other language. Yep. Python has the requirements.txt, same fundamental concept, right? So what Dependabot is on GitHub is you push your code repository to GitHub, and you've got one of these files in there. That's a list of packages with version numbers. Dependabot goes around, if you've enabled it, and it looks at for those files, and it looks at the versions in those files, and it looks at the package repositories. And if it sees that, Rim is using colors 1, right? And then it notices that colors 666 came out. Yeah. It'll send you the bot will send you a pull request that's like, hey, there's a new version security update for colors.
Yep.
Please merge this pull request to update to version color 666.
So you could set up a pipeline where that pull request ends up spinning like a virtual environment and a Docker or whatever to test it and run automatic.
Right. If you have CI/CD, then a pull request will automatically get tested. And when you merge it, it'll automatically get deployed. Yep. And so all you have to do is basically let Dependabot run something like it that you can trust, right?
Yep.
And then keep merging those things, and then you should be up to date on your, and if your test coverage is good, right? If your test coverage is not good, one of those library updates might break something, and you wouldn't know because your test would still pass.
Yep. If you work in a mission-critical environment, you probably want manual testing or verification independent of all that CI/CD.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how you can keep your libraries and things up to date. But like, the problem here is, again, we're writing software in such a way that most of your program is actually other things you've pulled in from people.
Because you said there was a load-bearing word in everything you said a while ago, and that was trust. It's not just trusting these package managers and these package maintainers. It's also trusting your own QA processes, your own deployment processes, how you've structured your code, trusting your own tests. You have to trust a lot of things, and we've gotten to the point to where the modern day hello world, like the minimum viable program, it touches so much nonsense in many ecosystems. And that is
you spend a lot, I spent a lot of time just doing, working on this new GeekNights website, right? I spent the large portion of this year just doing the environment setup. I made a whole system, right? Just to build, it didn't do anything. All it did was launch a blank website. That's all it does. Right. And that was a whole project just to do that. And now working on the actual website is like a breeze, mostly. The RSS feeds are a lot of work. But other than that, it's like most of the work was just getting all that foundational stuff, which is really just bringing together other people's code in an automated way so that I could write our code, which is going to be not a large percentage of the overall total code that is going to run the website. Yeah.
And I think
what we bring to the website is the data, not the code.
Yep. And this is partly like to get a little existential and a little roomy about this. This is sort of this increasing, we're layering abstractions upon abstractions upon abstractions. And this isn't new. Think about that shitty video card we just talked about. Computing is all the same fundamental. It's all just adders in the end. We figured out adders a long time ago. We figured out how to add some numbers together with binary logic. And we've just been expanding upon that. And with increased abstraction comes increased specialization. Whereas in the old days, a computer scientist wrote code that made the computer go, and that was it. But look at how many different subspecialties exist to make anything happen in the modern technology world.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I think it's good for everyone to understand the concept of a package manager, some repository of software that's like an app store, right? But a more advanced app store that can bring lots of different pieces of software together, and not just individual blobs of like entire programs, but also programs that depend on other programs to work. Like Notepad needs the text library or whatever. And also on top of that, right, an entire ecosystem where you have a package manager for your whole OS, and then package manager for the programming language, and then several different instances, right, where different containers or sandboxes where different sets of packages are installed. And then even something like, Docker, where it's like they have, the Docker Hub, which is like a repository of images. So it's like meta again. Right. But it's just and then the way you build software these days is basically by pulling together, most of the work is pulling together pieces from various repositories in a cohesive fashion and then linking them together.
There are people whose
Legos.
sole job in a lot of big companies is to be the release manager as a person, to coordinate the pipeline of how releases get to production from this extremely abstracted and multi-dependent environment.
Yeah, you could even, right, your program itself that ties together other programs, you could push it out to the repository as yet another program.
Yep.
Right. And then other people could then install your thing.
But I think
all the stuff that you depended on would come along with it.
The biggest sort of concern I see in this space right now, back to around trust, is that one, malicious packages can happen, which means you have to be canny.
Often.
You've got to protect yourself. If you're just a hobbyist, whatever, but even whatever, say you get a dodgy package that's not used by a lot of people, and thus doesn't have as many eyes keeping an eye on it, and it does something malicious. And now you're running that on your own local PC when you're doing testing, and it breaks out of the sandbox and fucks with your computer. There's there are a lot of dangers of naively using packages that aren't used by a lot of other people. But something used by a lot of other people isn't necessarily that much safety, because in NPM, those two packages are widely used. And granted, people caught this problem pretty quick, but if you had something critical that depended on those packages and your unit tests were, I guess in this case, your unit tests have to be pretty dog shit to not catch what happened if you pulled those packages in. But you can get yourself into a really sticky situation in a hurry, and there aren't good ways to validate how reliable and how well maintained random packages are on the internet.
Open source software is provided with no warranty. That's how it works.
But open source software is also under a lot of pressure from the fact that all these cross dependencies and these packages upon packages and abstractions upon abstractions means that, and there's an XKCD comic from years ago that I always think back to, where you can find entire ecosystems where dependencies are obfuscated through all these layers, and you find out that like an entire industry is depending upon, literally at its root, one library where the person who wrote it died 20 years ago and no one's touched it.
Yep, that's how it goes.
And
the biggest source, I think, for the malicious packages is usually, like, if there's something is a big time package that a lot of people use,
like Log4j.
Right. That
wasn't malicious. That was just a mistake.
Right. That was just bugs in the thing. Right. Honest, security vulnerability.
But it does go against the idea that more eyes means no, there aren't going to be security vulnerabilities. That is not necessarily true, because security vulnerabilities are increasingly obscure.
That's true. But the biggest source of malicious packages is going to be typos, I think, usually, right? Is because whoever pushed, or if you just go and search around and are willing to install something that's not popular, right? Because usually they'll let you publish anything, right? But it's like, all right, some weirdo published something called, Devil's Lib. Right? It's like, you go install Devil's Lib. It's like, all right, no, you're the only one who was willing to install that. Good luck. But, if maybe there's something called colors and you accidentally pip install or npm install color and you forget the S.
Yep.
And it's like, haha, that was actually just a virus someone put up there under a name that was very close to the name of a popular thing.
Very similar to like if you type URLs that are very close to real URLs, you usually get to some ridiculous malware-filled spam website.
Yeah, and this is why, Apple, in the App Store, it's like, for all our complaining that they won't let you in there and they have all these restrictions and always checking everything. It's like, this is why they can't be having just anyone push whatever they want into the App Store, because it'll be full of viruses and evil stuff. All right, they got to check it out.
So yeah, this is the kind of stuff, if you're going to be a software person of any stripe, you have to at least understand how these things work, even if you're not working with them day to day. That's fun. We've gone on for an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm real hungry, so we'll just stop right there.
Yeah, I'm already ordering food right now.